Jimmy Hoffa was a man who rose from humble beginnings to become a towering figure in American history. Born in 1913 in Brazil, Indiana, Hoffa's grit and charisma quickly set him apart. By his early 20s, he was already proving his mettle as a labor organizer, giving a voice to workers struggling against unfair practices. He would go on to become the president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, IBT, one of the largest and most powerful unions in the United States. Hoffa's rise to power was anything but ordinary. His leadership style was bold and fierce, marked by his unrelenting drive to secure better wages, improved working conditions, and a sense of dignity for millions of workers. But his roadmap to success was not without controversy. Hoffa was known for playing hardball, using aggressive tactics to consolidate power and grow the union's influence. This toughness earned him the loyalty of workers, but also made him a polarizing figure. Rumors of backroom deals and illicit alliances began to follow him. Hoffa was accused of forging ties with organized crime figures to strengthen his union's grip. Allegedly, he leveraged mob connections to ensure contracts went his way, silenced dissent, and even used union pension funds for questionable dealings. Despite these whispers, nothing could stop Hoffa's ascent. To his supporters, he was a champion of the working man. To others, he was a ruthless player in a game laced with corruption. But Jimmy Hoffa's power and influence came at a price. By the 1970s, the world he dominated was shifting into one of chaos and danger. The 1970s were a tumultuous time for organized labor and crime. The lines between unions and the mob were blurred, and Hoffa walked a dangerous line between these worlds. Fresh out of prison, after serving a sentence for jury tampering, bribery, and fraud, Hoffa had one goal in mind: to reclaim his position at the top of the Teamsters. But this quest to regain power was fraught with peril. During his imprisonment, the Teamsters Union had changed. Hoffa's former friends and allies became rivals who no longer wanted him around. The Teamsters Pension Fund, a financial juggernaut, had become a key point of contention. It was rumored to be heavily entwined with mob money, making Hoffa's return a threat to those who had replaced him. To some, Hoffa's return meant trouble. He knew too much, had too much ambition, and was unwilling to retire quietly. This painted a target on his back. The volatile world of 1970s organized crime was unforgiving. Mistakes were fatal, and alliances were easily betrayed. With enemies growing on both sides, Hoffa was stepping into a deadly game. And then he vanished. Jimmy Hoffa's life met its greatest mystery on July 30th, 1975. That afternoon, he left his home in Detroit to attend a meeting at the Machus Red Fox restaurant in the suburb of Bloomfield Township, Michigan. The meeting was allegedly supposed to involve two mob figures, Anthony "Tony Provenzano and Tony Giacalone. Hoffa's goal? To negotiate his triumphant return to the union leadership. But Hoffa would never leave that parking lot. His car was found abandoned in the lot of the restaurant, but there was no sign of Hoffa himself. Witnesses reported seeing him waiting outside around 2 p.m., pacing, checking his watch. But after that, no one knows. The investigation that followed was extensive and bizarre. Theories ranged from the belief that Hoffa's body had been buried under Giant Stadium in New Jersey to claims that he was dismembered, incinerated, or even dissolved in acid. Search crews combed fields, parking lots, lakes, and construction sites. The FBI pursued leads for years, but no physical evidence of Hoffa's fate was ever discovered. The disappearance reverberated across the country. How could one of the most powerful and well-known figures in America vanish into thin air? Where does one start when unraveling a mystery this big? The theories about Jimmy Hoffa's fate are as varied as they are chilling. One popular theory is that Hoffa was assassinated by the mob to protect their interests. His efforts to regain leadership of the Teamsters may have been seen as a threat to carefully maintain power structures, particularly surrounding control of the union's pension fund. Then there are the suspects. Anthony Provenzano, known as Tony Pro, was a high-ranking figure in the mob and a former ally turned bitter rival of Hoffa. Provenzano had clashed with Hoffa repeatedly and reportedly issued threats against him in the years leading up to his disappearance. Frank Sheeran, a mob enforcer and self-proclaimed confidant of Hoffa, later claimed responsibility for Hoffa's murder. Sheeran's account suggested Hoffa was lured into a house under the guise of a meeting, and there he was killed. However, Sheeran's confession has been met with skepticism due to a lack of forensic evidence. And finally, Tony Giacalone, another mob boss, was suspected of orchestrating Hoffa's ill-fated meeting at the Machus Red Fox. Giacalone's connections suggested he had the power and motive to carry out a hit on Hoffa. Despite exhaustive investigations, no theory has been definitively proven. Suspicion is all that remains. Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance didn't just mark the end of a man. It symbolized a seismic shift in the American labor movement. The Teamsters, once synonymous with Hoffa's larger-than-life presence, moved on without him. Leadership changed hands, the union evolved, but Hoffa's shadow loomed large. For decades, his case has held the nation captive. True crime enthusiasts dissect every detail. Amateur sleuths chase outlandish leads, and high-profile documentaries keep the conversation alive. Hoffa has become less a man and more a symbol of power, corruption, and mystery. The FBI continues to pursue occasional leads, digging up rumored burial sites and re-examining old evidence. But each search ends in frustration. Jimmy Hoffa's fate remains unknown, his final resting place as elusive as the truth behind his life and death. What really happened to Jimmy Hoffa? Was it a calculated mob hit, a planned disappearance, or even a tragic accident shrouded in conspiracy? The questions persist, and the answers remain maddeningly out of reach. Jimmy Hoffa's story is one of ambition, triumph, and controversy. It's a story that forces us to recognize the stark realities of power and the dangers of defiance. But it's also a puzzle, one where the final piece may forever be missing. Perhaps, somewhere, the truth about Hoffa lies buried beneath layers of soil, concrete, or secrecy. Until that truth is unearthed, the mystery will endure. What do you believe happened to Jimmy Hoffa? Theories will rise and fall, suspects will fade into the past. But the enigma of Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance remains one of America's most captivating cold cases.